Welcome everyone to Frontera's YouTube channel. I'm Michaela Durst, the Patient Technology Assistant. And with me today, I have John Godero, our licensed professional counselor. We have a special short presentation for you on the holiday survival guide, followed by a live Q&A session with John that you may ask any questions you may have. And if you're unsure whether or not you're watching live, look at the top corner of your screen, and if the red live icon is there, we are live. If it's not, then you are viewing a replay and can still drop your questions or comments in the chat, and we'll get back to you. All right. Okay, so the topic for today is embracing healing, the power of forgiveness, and letting go. Wellness Uncorked is brought to you in partnership with the Texas Wine Auction and Frontera Healthcare Network. Through this innovative program, we are able to provide free group counseling classes, educational seminars, health fairs, and more. At this time, I'm going to turn the show over to John so that we can get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here with you all. And for those of you who are watching now or watching later, I hope that this topic is beneficial to you. I think that when it comes to relating with people, and really now, I think especially after the holidays, after we've been with a lot of our family members for so long, maybe this is just a good reminder when it comes to relating to our family members, our friends, just the people around us, people in our lives. But the importance of forgiveness, and just talking about the concept of forgiveness and how it is more healing for us. It helps us to reconcile with others. It helps to build fruitful and healthy relationships. And so hopefully this is an encouraging talk for you today, and that you get something out of this that's beneficial for your life, for your mental and emotional well-being, and hopefully for your relationships as well. So we'll start with a story. It's called The Climber, that has to do with letting go of the things that weigh us down. We realized over time that learning to let go frees us and allows us to live a more fulfilling life. And that's really the goal. And when it comes to forgiveness, that's one of the main objectives, is freeing us up to live a more fulfilling life. So I'll read this to you from this story called The Climber. It says, a man was climbing a mountain to get home to his village at the top of a steep mountain. Unfortunately, there were some mean and hurtful people that lived along the trail on the way up to the top of the mountain. Every once in a while, one of these bitter and mean people would hurl a rock at the climber to try to prevent him from getting to the top of the mountain. Having rocks thrown at him by these bad people made the man very angry. So what the man would do is catch the rocks that were thrown, and then he would put them in his backpack. The idea was that he would save each rock to then one day throw back at these bad people when he sees them again. With time, however, his backpack got heavier and heavier. This only made the man angrier and angrier, and it slowed him down on his climb to the top. The man let his anger turn to hate and bitterness, which fueled his grueling struggle with a backpack full of rocks. The struggle eventually became unbearable, as the weight was too much to carry, but still he pressed on. One day, a wise man told the man to just let go of the rocks so he can climb freely again and get where he needs to go. The man questioned, if I let go of these rocks, what am I going to use to hurt the people who tried to hurt me? The wise man replied, nothing. But if you let go of the rocks, you will reach the top of the mountain much quicker and easier, and all these people will be behind you. So the man emptied his backpack full of rocks and felt a huge weight off his back, literally and emotionally too. The man then focused on his climb and then focused on dodging thrown rocks instead of catching and holding them any longer. Before he knew it, he reached the top of the mountain where he began living happily with the people who cared about him and loved him. The man thought to himself, the way I was going, I never would have made it to the top of the mountain if I didn't drop the rocks. They were far too much of a burden to bear. So hopefully that story kind of resonates with you a little bit, that maybe it shares with you some encouragement about the rocks that you're carrying, Forgiveness is about letting go of the things that are slowing us down. And unforgiveness really does slow us down, as we learned from that story. That it really is about not holding on to those hurtful things, those wounds, those offenses that people have hurled at us throughout our lives. A lot of times we store those away, we stuff them down deep inside, or we hold on to them. Maybe even we hold on to those hurts because we want to get back at someone someday. And all it's doing, instead of really propelling us forward, it's actually slowing us down and keeping us from progress. So we'll talk real quick about what forgiveness is and what it is not.
I'm gonna have to interrupt you for just a
Okay.
second because I realize we are not showing our slides here. So let's try this again. Sorry about that, everybody. Oh, there we go.
Awesome.
All right, we are good to go.
Cool. All right. So the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about what is forgiveness and what is not forgiveness. It's really easy to get confused about what forgiveness is and even why we need to forgive other people. A lot of times forgiveness can be seen as a should. We want to make peace with people. We want to reconcile, and that's healthy and good. But we should always be doing it for the right reasons. We should also talk about the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation and how it's important to have those boundaries. So the first thing on here it says is that forgiveness does not always fix relationships, but it does help mend the hurting heart. There's pain often. When there's pain, when there's an offense, when there's hurt, when there's someone who has done something to harm you, there's pain that lingers. And the reason why forgiveness is needed is because we're still holding on to that pain. We're still holding on to that hurt. That forgiving that other person, forgiving what's been done wrong to us, may not necessarily fix that relationship. In fact, we could go on and say it doesn't have to fix that relationship, but it does help free us from the hurt that's lingering in our hearts. Second thing on there it says is that forgiveness is both a decision and a process, and healing is a long journey. And so to go along with that, when you get triggered, it does not mean that your decision to forgive was fake or wasn't real. Oftentimes we can make a decision to forgive another person, but then it still comes up later. Something still causes us harm or causes us to feel triggered emotionally later on. That doesn't negate the forgiveness that you offered to or that you gave to that person, or the forgiveness that you feel like you resolved in your heart. It just means that you're still processing it. You're still going through that process. And so it's a journey. It sometimes takes time. There's more to be done. Your decision to forgive, the facts of what happened, is done in a specific moment in time, but the process of working through all the emotions from the impact of what happened will likely take place over a long period of time. The third thing is that forgiveness doesn't let the other person off the hook. That's really important. A lot of times, one of the protests that we hear about forgiveness is, well, I don't want to let the other person off the hook. I don't want them to think that what they did was okay. I don't want to give the impression that what they did didn't bother me. What happens instead is that it actually places that person in God's hands. It places that person in the hands of justice. And so forgiving the one who hurt you does not mean that you're freeing them from the consequence of what they did wrong. What it does mean is that you're refusing to take upon yourself the burden of taking revenge or of getting back at them. And you're trusting that what needs to be done in their life will be done in their life, and you are not the justice giver. The fourth thing is forgiveness does not justify or excuse abuse. That's really important also. Again, it doesn't mean that you're just approving of it. Forgiving someone for what they've done to you does not mean that you're okay. A lot of times whenever kids are told, when we teach kids to apologize to other children for doing something wrong. I've got young kids. Sometimes they get mad at each other, they fight, and I'll tell them, hey, you need to say you're sorry. And the other person will just automatically say, after someone apologizes, oh, it's okay. And so what we try to teach them is we don't need to say it's okay because it wasn't okay, but I forgive you, right? And so forgiveness does not mean you're okay with what that person did to you or that you're excusing the abuse that they gave to you. And so while there is grace that's given to them, and the grace of God provides a way for all people to be forgiven, abuse is not to be tolerated. And so it's right for you to establish boundaries with equal measures of mercy and tough love. It's okay to still have a boundary in your life with someone who's hurt you in the past, as opposed to letting them come back into your life and abuse you over and over again. The next thing is that forgiveness is required by God, but reconciliation is conditional. So while forgiveness is good for your healing journey, that does not necessarily mean that you have to reconcile with that person. Forgiving someone doesn't mean that trust is immediately restored or that those hard relational dynamics are instantly fixed, that things have to go back to the way they were. Reconciliation is dependent on two people, both of them being willing to work on the relationship equally. In some cases, reconciliation is simply not an option, but that doesn't make forgiveness any less healing for you. And so, wouldn't it be great if reconciliation could take place? If the other person did realize the error of their ways or how they hurt you and apologize and ask for your forgiveness, and the two of you can work on reconciling or repairing that relationship. But the fact of the matter is, that doesn't always happen. And so forgiveness does not automatically mean that the relationship is going to be healed or repaired, or that you can just let things slide and go back to being how you were with that person. The last thing is that forgiveness is not an act of our determination. Forgiveness is only made possible by our cooperation. And so when I wrongly think that my ability to forgive rises and falls on all of my efforts, mustered up grit, conjured maturity, bossed around resistance, and gentle feelings that feel real one moment and fake the next, I'll never be able to authentically give the kind of forgiveness that Jesus has given to me. And so in reality, not all forgiveness is up to me. Not all reconciliation is up to me. That forgiveness is something that we can offer to a person, but we can only do so much to help heal that relationship. So, reasons for forgiveness. Why is it healthy to forgive? Why is it good to forgive? But also beyond that, why are we motivated to forgive? What's the motive behind why we're forgiving the person who's harmed us? Forgiveness typically has a positive connotation. It suggests that we've dealt with something negative in our lives, a relational difficulty, some harm that someone has done to us, a breakdown of some kind of relationship in our lives, that we've healed from its effects on us, and that we're ready to now let go and move on. However, that's not always the case. People may verbalize or act like they're in a place of forgiveness in order to either avoid conflict, adhere to pressure from other people, ignore their own emotions to move on, keep the peace, or to feel like or even project themselves as a good person. So we'll go through those real quick, and I think they're gonna show up on your screen. There we are.
There we go.
So avoiding conflict. There's a difference between being a peacemaker and a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers just want to avoid conflict. They're afraid of conflict. The reality is conflict can be healthy if done in the right way. A lot of times, though, people will automatically jump to forgiveness because they feel like that's what it's going to take to just keep the peace and avoid conflict. The next one was to give in to pressure from others. Going back to teaching kids about apologizing and forgiving. We can't force our kids to forgive other people. It has to be something that they're choosing to do out of their own hearts. Ignoring your own emotions just to move on. That's a whole different topic of conversation, that third one there, because that opens the door to this whole concept of, are you in the habit of ignoring your emotions in order to appease other people? The fourth thing is keeping the peace. Again, the difference between peacemakers and peacekeepers. Peacemakers are not afraid of conflict. They're able to have confrontations with people done in a healthy way in order to create peace again with those people. But keeping the peace, being a peacekeeper is all about just saying the right thing, doing the right thing, and in that last point, projecting yourself as the good person in the relationship. I'll just be the good person. I'll be the bigger person, and I'll forgive them. And that's not really giving due diligence to the process that you might need to go through in order to forgive the person who's harmed you. What's really important is to start with self-forgiveness. To truly forgive, one must separate their healing from others' repentance or lack thereof. Again, the question is, does a person need to apologize to me in order for me to be able to forgive them? And the answer is no. Our healing does not have to be tied to another person's repentance or even their admission of guilt. It may be that a person never admits to you what they did wrong, or they never come seeking your forgiveness, that they never come in repentance and say, I'm sorry, I want to make this right, I was wrong, I harmed you. But that doesn't mean that we cannot still offer them forgiveness. Our healing is separate from their admission of guilt or their repentance. Even if they never apologize, even if they never seek to make things right, even if we never see that person again, we have the ability, if we choose to take that opportunity, to forgive them in our own hearts. Even if that doesn't mean going to that person and telling them directly, forgiveness is about what takes place in our hearts. That's where the healing takes place. The ability to heal cannot be conditional on them wanting your forgiveness, but only on your willingness to give it. And then you have to be able and willing to forgive the person that you see in the mirror every single day first, to be able to spread that on to others in your life. If you can't find a way to forgive yourself, to love yourself, to accept yourself and have compassion towards yourself, you're going to have a really hard time sharing those things with the people around you. And so it all has to start with looking in the mirror and saying, I'm coming to terms with myself. I'm at peace with myself. I have acceptance and forgiveness and love and compassion. I'm receiving that from God. I'm giving that to myself. And so now I can give that to other people. And then just some final quotes real quick as we end this topic. We cannot change what we've experienced, but we can choose how the experiences changed us. I think it was Virginia Satir who said, life is not about what is or what could be, or life is not about what could be. Life is what it is. It's what we do with it that makes all the difference. And so our choices in how we respond to our experiences make all the difference. It's not about what could be. It's about what is. We cannot go back and change the things that we've gone through. We can't go back and change the hurts that people have caused us. We can't go back and undo the pain, the anguish that we've experienced at the hands of other people. But we can choose how that experience changes us and what we choose to do with it from here on out. Forgiveness is both a decision and a process. Like I said, it takes that initial moment of deciding in your heart, I'm going to work towards forgiving this person. I'm going to work towards forgiving this harm. And then you engage in the process of going through those feelings, going through those emotions, going through the hurts, and trying to seek healing for those things. Forgive others, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. It's not about whether someone deserves it. We hear that a lot. How can I possibly forgive that person? He doesn't deserve forgiveness after what he did to me. She doesn't deserve to be forgiven. It's not about whether a person deserves forgiveness. It's about you deserving peace. It's about you deserving and needing peace in your heart and peace in your mind. And the last one is that forgiveness releases our need for retaliation, not our need for boundaries. Again, going back to the climber, the guy going up the mountain with the bag full of rocks, he was able to release those rocks, meaning he was letting go of his need to get back at those people. He was letting go of all those rocks that he wanted to use to throw back at them and cause harm to them. And when he let those things go, he was able to focus on what was right and what was good and focus on his journey. So it releases our need for retaliation, but not our need for boundaries. We still need good boundaries in our life. We want to protect ourselves. We want to keep ourselves from some of the harm that's been caused to us in the past. And so it's important for us to look at where in our relationships might it be good for us to have good boundaries so that we don't find ourselves in the same situations again in the future. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll see if we have any questions or follow up to that.
Thank you, John, for being our presenter today. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat now and we will get to them. If you liked what you heard today or have a request for a future topic, please feel free to drop those in the comments as well. We would love to hear from you. So are you ready to begin your mental health journey? If you would like further information on a Wellness Uncorked program or to schedule an appointment with one of our licensed professional counselors, or to find out more about the Wellness Uncorked initiative, please call 597-0102 or visit our website at frontierahn.org. Frontera offers counseling services in person and virtually. So let's check for questions really quick before we close out. All right, I don't see any questions. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you will never miss a notification of when we go live and to learn more about the importance of our mental health. Thank you, everybody.